Hello everyone and welcome to the 2000 subscriber celebration special. This is a Q&A and I am very excited to get this video underway. I did this a long time ago when I was celebrating, I think it was 900 subscribers, it was 900 or 1000, but it was so much fun doing it the first time around, so I thought, you know what, we got an occasion and pretty much the best reason to do another one. So yeah, why not do it again? So I asked a good number of times for people to get some questions in, and I did get plenty, and thank you all ever so much for your questions. I'm going to do what I can to try and answer them to the best of my abilities. There are a few I had to leave out, so if your question was not answered, then I do apologise, but there was one in particular that I just couldn't make sense of, so I'm going to have to just leave that out. But we're going to start off with a user named The Freelancer who asked two questions. First of all, do you plan on revisiting some American locomotives? I have built a big boy, and I've built the Polar Express, which is Berkshire 765 or something like that. I don't know, I'm not familiar with American locomotives, but those are two American engines that I've built, and sadly I don't think I'd come back to American engines just because they're so non-familiar to me. I'm British, I'm more familiar with British locomotives, and if I tried to explain the details of the engine used as the Polar Express, I couldn't do it. I would just be stumped straight away. So whilst I could do some research on them, it's not something I would do, and particularly because of how they look as well. If you put, say, the Flying Scotsman next to the Polar Express, they look very different. Now, British locomotives, they're brightly coloured, they have some more elegance to their design, they look really nice. That's not to say American locomotives don't look nice, but to me, American engines have that look of, they've been built to work, here we are, just get on with it, and that is a nice look, it's got to be said. That's a proper strong industrial look, but it's not something I'm familiar with, so trying to learn all these techniques is a bit out of my comfort zone in a way. So I don't know if I will return to American engines, but there is one that has been brought up every now and then, and it's Union Pacific 844, so maybe one day, but for now that's on hold. I've got some other ideas for things to build at the moment. And he also asks, do you plan on building smaller engines like tank engines? So when it comes to tank engines, I kind of have a rule with them. Way back when, I used to make strictly custom Lego trains, and that kind of led into the custom TLR class of locomotives, where it was completely custom. I'm not looking at any pictures of any locomotives online, I'm just, right, I've got some bricks, I want a train, build straight away. Some of them unintentionally looks like real locomotives, some of them took inspiration from real locomotives, but when it comes to the tank engines, I want to keep them all custom. That's my way of making sure that I can still build properly in a way, where I'm not relying on having to look at something and go, right, that's what I'm going to build, I can't build anything else. It's also a nice kind of touch with my roots, because again, before, I don't know, I'd say 2018, I think that was when I started building real locomotives. Everything before then was all custom, and yeah, I think if I go back to tank engines, it's going to be another custom model. It would be nice to make another tank engine, but it's deciding what it's going to look like. And I think it'll be easier for me to use smaller drive wheels, because you can keep that small, more compact size. And I don't have any spare right now. The only medium-sized drive wheels I would be willing to take off another model is my narrow gauge P2, and I want to keep that engine. So tank engines maybe, but there needs to be a good enough reason for me to make another tank engine. I've got loads of trains right now. I do have a good few amount of tank engines. How many do I have? I don't know, I'll have to count them up. Might be worth doing another TLR collection video again. So yeah, I don't think I'll be coming back to them anytime soon, but there needs to be a good reason for me to want to build another train. Danish Beep Sabir, or Saber, I do apologise for butchering the names, by the way, I should have said that at the beginning. He's got a good few questions. So first of all, are you a fan of Professor Layton, because your channel name is Layton's Psychic Luke Triton? So, I have been asked this before, it was only once before, and I kind of just wrote it off and said, well, yes and no. So, yes, I absolutely love the Professor Layton series. I think the first game came out in 2007. It was The Curious Village. My favourite cutscene, by the way, in The Curious Village is when Don Paolo uses a remote control on the Ferris wheel to chase Luke and Layton through the park. Ah, it's so cool. It's like the best display of crazy Professor Layton technology. And yeah, so I've been keeping up with the series from the original trilogy up to the first game. So what was it? It was Curious Village, we got Pandora's Box, Lost Future, went through those three. Quick spoiler alert, in the Lost Future it's based around time travel, but the time machine itself is a lift going from above ground to underground. Oh, it's just so clever! I think that's brilliant. Yeah, so back to the question. Yes, I love Professor Layton, but the name of the channel does come from the sidekick character Luke Triton. My real first name is Luke, but I thought to myself, I don't want to put my real surname out there because I want to have a bit of privacy and protection against my personal social medias. If you want to, interact with me at all, keep it here. I don't want to have you like message me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever. So I chose Triton because, first of all, I think that sounds really cool, and secondly, it's from a franchise that I love. So yeah, I do love Professor Layton, and that is where the channel name comes from. He also asks, Marvel or DC? Now, I never really got into superhero stuff until, well, not properly until 2016. I was in college and just in class, and a bunch of my mates were looking at the trailer for Captain America Civil War. I thought, oh yeah, Marvel and DC, I've seen some of the older Batman films, like The Dark Knight Rises, and that trilogy. I can't even remember all the names of them because it has been a long time since I've watched them, but I saw the one with the Joker, the one with Bane. I prefer Bane more than Joker, don't need me too much when I say that, but Bane. It's Tom Hardy, so that's pretty cool. But DC never really clicked with me. I've always been a bigger fan of Marvel, and of course Captain America is my favourite superhero. I've done plenty of cosplays as him, I've got plenty of Captain America merchandise. But, yeah, again, just DC never clicks. At the same time, about, what was it, a month ago now, maybe? When DC released all of these trailers for upcoming projects, Marvel fans were crying. But at the same time, I'm thinking, yes, DC has so much coming out. That's amazing, good for them. If somebody said to me, if I'm going to watch the Batman animated series, you want to sit down and watch it with me? I would say yes. I could definitely sit down and try to enjoy it. I'm not going to go, no, I don't like DC, Marvel forever. I'm not going to go strictly either side. But Marvel took my interest more so than DC. That was all. His third question is, favourite football team? I mean the real football, the one you actually use your feet. Not American football, British football. So, I am not a sporty person. I don't give two shits about sports. But if the World Cup is on, I will watch it. I can remember sticking around in 2014 for that World Cup. And also for the 2018 World Cup. It was fun just to watch the matches because, it's a big global event. Everybody's pretty much going to be watching. So yeah, I can sit down and watch that. But if anything else is on, I'll be in a coma. I'll just be asleep, snoring away. I don't care for sports. And that kind of shows, a nerd in his room playing with Lego and video games, and cosplays. Yeah, clearly not someone who cares about sports. I don't have a favourite football team or a rugby team or whatever else. That's not me. And this question in particular, I love this so much. You're going to think, fucking hell, how old is he? And finally, what's your favourite British TV show? In-Betweeners, Doctor Who, etc. So I am 22 years old, and I'm a bit young for certain TV shows. I think The In-Betweeners is a show that I missed. Doctor Who was something I grew up watching, absolutely. When it came back in 2005, I can remember sitting there with the first episode. Me and my mate from primary school, we just kept up with it, loved it so much. There's a bunch of old kids shows as well. Ben 10 as well. That's not British though, but yeah, I may as well throw that in, because yeah, kid show. But there is a really old TV show. Pardon me, sorry about this. So let me start that again. There was an old TV show that's ran from 1974 to 1981. I believe those are the dates. And it's called It Ain't Half Hot, Mum. It's an old show. It's not a show you could rerun today because people would whinge and complain about it because the language used and the way that it's displayed, it's accurate to the time. So it's a British comedy show set in 1945 following a small group of soldiers who are the concert party based in Dhulali in India. It's so funny. It is absolutely amazing. Battery Sergeant Major Williams is someone I will quote every now and then. I'll, like, when I'm playing a video game, I'm just there to myself. Every now and then I'll talk to myself because I'm a bit mad like that. And I'll go into BSM's voice, like, "Oh dear lovely boy, what is you doing over here?" Like that sort of thing. Not the best impression, but it's such a good show. It's genuinely amazing. I have the box set. I can remember when I watched it for the first time, I thought, you know what, I gotta watch this because this proves I have my dad's sense of humour. I got the box set, watched the whole thing, and yeah, you can find full episodes on YouTube. It Ain't Half Hot's Mum. Episodes I recommend you watch are the first episode, just to get used to, because it's a pilot episode. Season 2, episode 3, which is The Natives Are Revolting. That's a very funny episode. And season 4, episode 5, which is Lofty's Little Friend. It's a show that spanned 8 series and is about 8 or so episodes per series, so it's not too long. If you're British, you'll definitely enjoy it because it shows proper British humour, and it's following British characters after all. But if you're from anywhere else, I seriously think it's worth a go. Give it a watch. You can find them for free. The screen, like when you watch the episodes online, the screen is a bit distorted, but it doesn't take away from any experience. It's still a super funny show. Absolutely love it. I was so excited when I saw that question. I was like, oh yes, a reason to talk about it. So good. Okay, our next question comes from user Flying Scotsman 4472. First question is, would you make an engine like Stepney? No. Here is why. Go on YouTube, go on Flickr, you will find that there are a hell of a lot of models of Stepney and of that class locomotive. I feel like Stepney and the Flying Scotsman are the two most made Lego trains ever. Like, the most commonly made tank engine is Stepney, the most commonly made tender engine is Flying Scotsman. I made Scotsman at 6 wide and 7 wide, but after a while they got scrapped. And I thought to myself, well, Stepney, again, it's such a common build, I don't really care for it. It's not going to be unique. Yes, I could probably put my own, like the way I build it, I'll probably build it in a unique way. But is there really any point to me building it? I mean, I don't really want to. So, no, sadly, Stepney, it's just overdone. And besides, that goes back to the point I made earlier with the tank engines. If I'm going to make a tank engine, I'd rather it was completely custom. Maybe I can use that design and tweak it to look like something else, maybe. But, yeah. Knowing that it's going to be on Stepney, it's like, well, not really. And his second question is, would you consider making a streamlined locomotive like the German BR-01 or the Joseph Stalin? Now, I specifically didn't research this beforehand. I'm going to do this here with you live. So the German BR-01, let's have a look at that right now. So, German BR-01, we're going to look at this together. We're going to get our first impressions, see what that's like. Speaking of German locomotives, I have built a German-style locomotive where it's black body, red wheelbase. It was a version of the Midnight Panther, which is one of my giants. It turned into a 610 and in time it just disappeared. Okay, so the BR-01, it doesn't really look streamlined. It has that look of a standard German steam engine, but just a bit longer, I suppose. There's one in like a bluish grey. That looks quite nice, actually. But yeah, I think I've built an engine like this before, and whilst that's definitely something I could build, I would have to get all new parts, and like the wheels, for example, that's definitely XL size drive wheels, and I don't have any of that size in red, nor would I be willing to take any off a current model to spray paint them or anything like that. So it's just a matter of getting in parts. I don't mind building it in a way, but if I'm going to get wheels from anywhere that isn't like Bricklink, I've got to make it one big order. So all these engines I can definitely put on hold. You know what that reminds me? Looking at this, there was an Italian locomotive I built called, oh god, what was it? Like the FS class? The Italian FS class, and the number was 743. It's on my YouTube channel. It's a 6 wide build. It should be in the Real Locomotives playlist. Give it a look because it is a really good looking locomotive. That is a model I want to rebuild at 7 wide because it's genuinely gorgeous. So if anything, looking at this design, I'd rather go back to that Italian locomotive. So let's have a look at the Stalin locomotive. Here we go. Let's see what that's. Oh, I say. That looks quite nice. At the same time, that looks very difficult. The problem with streamlining with Lego is you have to kind of go super chunky in order to get the right look. Yeah, okay. So at the top immediately, if you look to where the top of that front section is, like where the funnel would meet, that sort of rounded sort of dome shape, how the hell would you make that in Lego? I could spend a day trying a bunch of different techniques and I'd probably never get it correct. That's such a big problem with Lego because you could get away with some square designs, but you know it's just not going to be right. I do like steam locomotives with that style of streamlined design. Glenn Holland from Brick Model Railroader has made a locomotive similar to this. The name escapes me, but he has made something, not this locomotive in particular, it's an American engine, but it looks really good. And again, it kind of features this sort of streamlined design. I don't think I could do that. I don't think that would take my fancy either. That sort of streamlined design is not new to me, but it's a bit foreign, obviously, because no British streamlined locomotive takes that design. The streamlined locomotives that I'm familiar with are the LNER streamlined engines. Think Mallard, think the streamlined P2. There's that look to them. And I've made a streamlined Coronation class from the LMS. That turns out, thanks to everybody who took part in the polls, is my most popular locomotive. And you know what? I agree, because every time I look at it, I love it more and more. So much for that silver P2, huh? Yeah. But I'll tell you what, that Coronation, beautiful. So the BR01 and the Joseph Stalin, I don't think I would go for them. I have my own kind of design. Again, I'm a bit selfish with this. There are Lego trains out there that take that similar design. Maybe not those two locomotives specifically, but there's always a possibility. Always one day. I mean, I've said this a few times. I don't know how many times I said this on camera. But when it comes to Lego trains, my dream end goal is to build pretty much every single train that's ever existed. How cool would that be? You need a lot of storage space. Okay, moving on to the next question from user LegoTech. Asking 3 questions. The first one is, would you make engines from other countries like the Union Pacific 844? That was mentioned earlier, alongside with American locomotives in general. And kind of with the question made previously. So just to summarize this again, because this is kind of those 2 previous questions in one. I'm British, I'm more familiar with British locomotives, so I'll naturally go to build British locomotives. I'm not against trying locomotives from other countries, but it's got to really take my interest for it to happen. 844 is something that is popular. It's a favourite amongst steam locomotive fans, and there was a time where I didn't make it, but it did seep into designs of 2 past engines. So there was a version of Blue Guardian that took a similar shape, and I think in terms of overall design that was as close as it went. And I think there was a version of the Greyhound that took inspiration from 844. I think so. But the engine itself was never attempted. Again, if there's enough push for me to do so, I reckon I could do it. It's just a matter of gathering the parts. Just the wheels that I only give a shit about, because the wheels are always just so expensive. The second question is, will you make a part of your railway narrow gauge? You haven't really gotten into narrow gauge very much, and I would love to see you incorporate it with the super train station. There was a time where the super train station accommodated narrow gauge. Before that extra platform was introduced, it was very much kind of just a single thing where you had that loop and you had the station, and the 2 platforms were kind of enclosed to those middle lines. Going to the other side, there wouldn't be anything there. So when that extra platform was introduced, yeah, that was going to be for narrow gauge, but now things have moved on because it's been expanded even further, and now it's more so just standard gauge for the entire station. Narrow gauge hasn't really seen too much love. I mean, I've got enough track for a basic loop, and whilst I would love to continue with narrow gauge, there's no reason why I won't. Well, I'm not going to say there's no reason. There is one reason. It's a matter of space. Of course it is. So I stopped narrow gauge fairly quickly. I mean, I made a good few videos on it, and after that kind of chunk of videos and all that excitement around narrow gauge kind of came and went, I didn't really go back to it. And that's a shame, because I know there's so much more I can do with narrow gauge, but I need to incorporate everything I've got into a main layout first. I want to sort out a proper layout before I go into narrow gauge. I don't know how long that's going to take, but that's the idea. I want to get a proper layout sorted before I go back to narrow gauge. Before I go back to anything else, really. Every now and then I'll probably go and just build something else in the meantime. But building a layout is going to be really tricky. So yeah, to actually answer your question, kind of derailed myself a bit there. Will I go back to narrow gauge? Yes, I will. I will expand the narrow gauge section of my railway, but in time, that's just on hold. There's so much that I want to do, but it's all pretty much on hold. Yeah. So here's last question is, will you make another Lego train for Lego Ideas? I read this earlier. No need to go into the rest of it, because pretty much all ties in while I go back to Lego Ideas. So here is a quick story about Lego Ideas. So I think it was about 2 years ago, again during 2018, I spent, what was it, like a month, or was it longer than a month, of me just making videos about Big Red, because I put Big Red as a quintuplex on Lego Ideas. And every few days I say, hey, I've had an idea for a modification, how about this design, how about this design, how about this change, how about that? And it was just constantly all focused on Big Red, trying to push it to get as many supporters as possible. And I think it hit around 200 before it just stopped. You need to obviously get 10,000 before it can actually go anywhere. But at 200 I thought, yeah, this is clearly just not going to work. I for one believe that Lego don't like trains. I mean, when you look at train sets nowadays, you get 1 or 2 a year. There used to be a full line dedicated to Lego train products. And even then, the Lego train sets that we get are all chucked into the City line. Every number of years, we'll get a special train set. Think the Emerald Knight, think the Horizon Express, and the latest installments being the Crocodile Locomotive. But of those 3 proper good train sets, from 2009, 2013, 2020, when's the next proper good train set going to come out? You know, we're going to wait 2 more years for the next ones to come out in City, but they're going to be stuff we've seen before. So knowing that Lego kind of want to stick with that, what are the chances a Lego train's going to work on Lego Ideas? A few train sets have gone through to the review stage on Lego Ideas. They've hit 10k supporters. They're in the pool like, okay, could this work? If we make these changes, what could happen? And none of them have gone through. Even if I put out a train that gets 10,000 supporters in a day, I seriously doubt it would go through. Because it's so specific. Model trains is the greatest hobby in the world. Lego is the greatest toy in the world. Put the two together, you have an incredible product. But not everybody has a Lego City. Not everybody has a Lego Railway. Not everybody's going to show interest in a train. When you look at sets like the Steamboat Willie, which came with Minnie and Mickey, that sort of set, when you look at the Flintstones house, obviously a lot of these idea sets have a brand with them. And there's a lot more sets that are just nice builds. I think, what was it, like the Seaside House, something like that, like an old looking house using a lot of tan and brown bricks. I can't remember what it was called, but something like that where you look at it and go, oh yeah, that looks pretty good. You're never going to see a train in that lineup. It's a real shame. So even if I put every single one of my trains on Lego Ideas, I might do that, just, you know, get them all on there, get some nice pictures. I doubt any of them would go anywhere. I really doubt it. Even if everybody who was subscribed to my channel would support them, even if everybody I knew supported them, even if other people showed interest, I just don't think they'd go anywhere. It's a wasted effort, so knowing that, it's a massive turn-off. Now that I've discussed this, I'll probably put them all on Lego Ideas anyway, because that might even be the best chance of people having their own model of a Lego train that I've built. But yeah, potentially, you know, just we'll have to see what happens, I suppose. But yeah, originally I don't think it'll work, but we can give it a go. Let me just make sure I'm on the right page. There we go. So user named DYU with 4 questions. Are you planning on putting numbers and letters on your locomotives? Yes. The only engine I've been able to do that with is my streamlined Coronation, because the way that it's all integrated into the lining looks really good. However, getting that sheet with yellow, so I got a yellow sheet of numbers and letters. That was quite expensive. It was, what was it, about £7, something like that? It was a proper good professional sticker sheet, and it came with plenty of letters and numbers and some like strips of lines, a strip of, what am I trying to say, like some lining strips basically, like you get on the roll of trimline tape, but instead would just have a few separate ones on the sheet in case you wanted to use them. That's all really cool, but that's just in one colour, and with how much is still left on the sheet, I don't know what else I'm going to use in yellow, so I'm going to have to buy another sheet in different colours, only just to use a few letters and numbers. There are probably a few services online or somewhere where they would make custom numbers or sticker sheets or something like that. But even then, it's like, it's just going to build up, and it's just too expensive. That's the problem. Everything costs so much money nowadays, and whilst there's so much I want to be able to do, it's just that process of, it's all a bit, you know what I'm trying to say? You know, I need to choose my words carefully here, because I don't want to get yelled at. Yes, I want to put the numbers and letters on more locomotives, but I need to make sure I can do this in the most effective and efficient way as possible, and obviously the cheapest way possible. I don't want to spend so much money on a big sticker sheet if I'm only going to use just like 2 or 3 numbers and letters. That's what happened to the yellow sheet I got for the Coronation, and now what's next? No idea. Are you planning on building a few real-life tank engines? We talked about this earlier. No tank engines. I'm going to build what I ideally wanted them to... let me start that again. My brain stopped working. No tank engines I want to build ideally should be custom. I've made a few real ones. Think Smokey Joe, hell, even Thomas the Tank Engine. It's an E2, but it's, you know, custom made. You get the idea. It's Thomas. But pretty much every other tank engine I've got is a custom build, and I'd rather keep them that way. There are some that I'm thinking about trying, like the Great Western Pannier tank. I think it looks really nice. But again, it's all a matter of if there's a big enough push for me to want to build them. Are you planning on putting motors in your locomotives, e.g. in the tenders? This is something I have absolutely mentioned before, and this is quite an interesting tale. So when it comes to power functions, first of all, when I started making custom engines, I didn't touch power functions, mainly on the basis is I didn't actually have any to hand. The only stuff I had was a simple motor and a simple battery box. Not the train motor, but think like a small cylinder motor. But even then, we only ever had those for some of the Lego Creator fairground builds. So those would be taken up for other models anyway. And having to find a way to sit the motor into the tender where it's sideways connected, having to put cogs onto the rods and make sure it doesn't slip. It's so complicated, and I think the most complicated time I ever tried this was with past version of Emerald Champion. I think it was 15.3, and it was a quadruplex version, and I thought, you know what, I've got 3 small motors, or 3 medium motors. Let's give it a go. And the fact that I had to have two motors connected together on an articulating wheelbase. It was so complicated, but it worked. But then it didn't work because the battery box would be completely drained after a minute of using it. The motors would sometimes get stuck, or they would click against other cogs and something would be misplaced. It's just, I can't get it right. I just cannot get it right. There are some people online who have absolutely mastered power functions. Again, think to the brick model railroader lads who are using some kind of fucking wizardry inside their locomotives for this to work. What kind of motor, what kind of power source are they using that's strong enough and is small enough to fit inside that model and push the engine as well as pull 5 coaches at a fast speed? What are they using? Genuinely, what are they using? It's mind-blowing. How come I haven't heard of this? Well, I know why I haven't heard of this, because I don't give a shit about power functions. I have powered rolling stock, however, and I feel like I have to bring this up anytime motorizing my engines is mentioned. So I have powered rolling stock. I've actually got next to me, like looking at my bedroom floor right now, I actually have a loop set up. I've just been having some fun with some of my trains. What's the point of having a train layout if you're not actually going to use it? So I've got a powered Kit Kat box wagon. You've seen that in action videos. I've got a powered Emerald Knight coach, and I have a powered Horizon Express coach. So the reason why I don't use those often is because one's orange, one's tan, and one's red. You put the 3 together, it's a fucking circus train on the go. I am going to have to think about changing the motors into different coaches so it's all looking the same, because I really do want that nice, clean, uniform look. But putting in the engines itself, it's something I just can't do. There was a time where, what was it? I think it was, no, it wasn't Flying Scotsman. It was the P2, that was it. It was with the P2. I tried to motorize the tender. I thought, you know what, I can't take apart the boiler, it's too complicated. What about the tender? And immediately I thought, how am I going to fit this all in? Some of the details are going to be compromised. The way it kind of all is built together is going to be so much weaker. I just can't do it. I've never been able to get a hold of power functions, and I've never been able to wrap my head around them. It's just not something I can get a hold of. So, annoyingly, powered models in the future are going to be done in a simple way, and if anything, just done in the form of rolling stock. His last question is not actually a question. I looked this up earlier when I was when a quick flick through the questions. It would be nice when you did your running sessions that the trains would pass through that big station. Yes, it would be nice, wouldn't it? But the station's too big. Oh, of course it is. Just of course it is. So if you want to have a look at what the station currently looks like, go to my channel. There is a playlist dedicated to that train station. It's called the Super Train Station, because the end game is for it to be absolutely massive and take up an entire room, and it kind of already does that. When I get it set up on the floor, it takes up most of my floor space. There's no room at all for a supporting layout. It's just not there. It cannot be done. So yeah, in the future, when it comes to running sessions, there's just going to be a standard loop, which is really sad, because that station is something I want to have for a future layout, as well as something that I could take to Lego shows. If I can get like 5 tables, like 2 of them just to support the station and the rest just to have for the supporting loop, that would be really cool. But yeah, sadly it just can't work because the station's too big. I have been thinking about making the station smaller in the future. I've been thinking about downsizing it, because here and now I do want to make a layout. I've kind of finished making trains. I could probably touch up a few bits of rolling stock, like the powered rolling stock mentioned earlier, and actually put together a proper layout. But if I'm going to do that, that means making the station smaller. and that's not something I want to do. I want the station to be absolutely massive. So I'm kind of stuck with a bit of a dilemma, but I'll have to think on that later on, let time go by, and maybe wait for shows to become available again, you know, can actually go to them before we can decide. But yes, the running sessions would absolutely be better if the station was added somewhere. It's going to be difficult to try and pull off, even if it's just its own thing. I don't know how easy it would be to try and set up any more track around that station, because again, it's just so bloody massive. I could use the signal box. Going back to what I said earlier, I've got some tracks set up right now on my floor next to me. I've just got some trains, well, not actively running now, but been having some fun over the past few days, and I've got my signal box added to that layout. That is because the signal box is built where it has a small sort of tunnel to it, and seeing a train go through there does look really cool. Besides, it's a bit of scenery, it's nice to see something else on a loop, it's really cool. So I think future train running sessions could have the signal box, but not the station. Not the station. It's just too big. Not yet. We'll talk about that in the future, because that's its own topic that could span a half-an-hour video. User Trains4460 Productions says, what's your favourite Canadian engine? Now, off the top of my head, there is one that sticks out. I hope I get the details correct, because like trying to name an American locomotive or something that isn't British is tricky for me. It is a 464. I think it's Canadian Pacific Railways, number 2860. It's got like a silver boiler, and it's got like some dark red going down the side. It looks absolutely amazing. I saw a Lego version of this train at, well, not at a show, it was on a Brick Model Railroader train spotting video. That, or it was one of their award videos, I can't remember, but I've definitely seen it on their channel. And it looks really, really good, both the Lego model and the real thing. Absolutely spectacular. It's the only Canadian engine I could bring up, so I'll have to go with that one. Nice to pick a good looking one, I suppose. And the last question from LegoTech is, I was wondering what are all of your gaming consoles you have currently and have had in the past. So, when it comes to video games, I play on PC. I do have a PlayStation 2. I used to speedrun a video game called Trick and Snowboarder. I haven't mentioned that in a very long time. Speedrunning, yes, that was something I used to do. I did that for a while. And since I didn't have any proper professional setup, and even especially now, since I can't replicate that setup, I've kind of just left it behind now. Yes, you should be able to still watch those speedruns on my YouTube channel. You should go to speedrun.com as well for Trick and Snowboarder. Not too long ago, a few other people tried that game, and I was so excited because other people gave it a go. I was like, yes, more people introduced this game, and so exciting, so cool. And I'm no longer world record holder. That was something else to bring up. Like, oh shit, it's like someone beat my record. Like, damn it. But then again, I had that record for years, so, oh well. You know, I've had my fun. At the same time, you know, I can't really complain because I haven't touched that game in so long. For the PlayStation 2, I also have some Rayman games. Rayman Multiplayer is a game that I absolutely love. Absolutely love that game so much. There is another version called Rayman Rush, which was for the PlayStation 1. That was the original version, so Rayman Multiplayer is like the remake of that. There was one more remake of it for the, I think it was for the GameCube, and it's called Rayman Arena. That's the version I want to get a hold of. I need to get a GameCube or the appropriate console for that game. But it's just like a much better version of Rayman Multiplayer, just because there's more to it. Yeah, so I've also, I have an Xbox 360, which I had for the longest time. My first 360 game was Modern Warfare 3. I can remember getting Black Ops 2 back in November of 2012. That's what, 8 years, almost 8 years ago now? Oh my god, that game is so old. Oh, but zombies though, Black Ops 2 Zombies. What a roller coaster. So I can remember getting the season pass, and me and my three friends who also played zombies back in secondary school, we just played together. We always played Town, Nuke Town, and we didn't care for Transit, we didn't care for Die Rise, Mob of the Dead. Everybody loves Mob of the Dead. That was a game I went solo on up until like round 30, and then thought, yeah, sod this, I'm just done. We didn't care too much for Buried. Whilst we could get used to it together, it wasn't a game we could really solo. And Origins was just too difficult. It's just so hard. We tried to go for the Easter egg, but we just couldn't get it done because upgrading the staffs, first of all, was such a lengthy process for us. Yeah, it was such a difficult process as well because we were all trying to figure out, trying to follow guides and whatever else. We thought, fuck this, we're done, we're just giving up. You can get the staffs, cool. Upgrading them, salt that. I'm not an Easter egg hunter either when it comes to Call of Duty Zombies. But I got Black Ops 3 as well for the Xbox One, and I got the Chronicles DLC, but I only play a few maps. I play the Giant, I play some of the more basic maps, I play Kino. You know what that reminds me as well? I can remember on Lex's channel, Mr. T Lexify, or his second channel, Lex Lounge, he had a talk with Syndicate about Syndicate's zombie map tier list, because Syndicate isn't an Easter egg player. And when I saw his tier list, I was like, yes, I absolutely agree. I don't care for Easter eggs either. I've watched videos that follow the story, but I don't care for Easter eggs at all. So yeah, let's get back to the question. So yeah, I got PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, I got an Xbox One. I haven't touched those since April because of the power incidents I had. I do have a PC and I've had this for, I'm going to say 3 years now. I'm not too sure, I can't remember when I actually got it. But I've used this pretty much every day ever since I've got it, and playing games on PC is just so superior. I don't play many games. If I load up Steam right now, I've got games like Skyrim, I've got the Fallout games, I've got a few random games that I thought I'd try. Nothing special, nothing stands out. I've got Terraria, of course. I've got like 200 hours in that. How many? Do I have 200? Oh, no, it's 126. Misread that. There is one game I've got. It's shout out to all the secondary school students out there. Swords and Sandals. Yep, you can get that on Steam. My favourite version is Swords and Sandals Pirates. That is such a cool game. I love that so much. Yeah, that's Steam on PC. Nothing special, but yeah, I don't really have that many consoles. Even then, I haven't touched the consoles in a long time. I only play a few games on PC. And no, you cannot join me, because I like to play solo. If I get my gamer tag out there, I'm going to get spammed with invites with people I don't know, and I do not want that. Oh, I'll tell you what, speaking of Steam and PC, Left 4 Dead 2, I have over 300 hours, and The Last Stand came out on the, 23rd of September? I remember seeing this post in like early September saying there's going to be a big update. I'm like, yeah, of course it is. Like, whatever. It's going to be like a fix to controls, or like fixing bugs or whatever else. Then this comes out. I'm like, oh shit, it's a full-on map. I remember when it came, I was like, yeah, it's a proper update. It took some time. Go through it solo just to get a feel for it. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Kind of tricky, but you know, this game has been out for pretty much a decade now. And I went on to some public games, and everyone's like, what's this map like? Is it good? Is it bad? I was like, yep, it's amazing. There is what I like to call the crane event. So you get to a junkyard and you have to sort things out with a big old crane, and that is just so cool. Really, really awesome. Yes, that will do for that question, and that will do for the Q&A. I have definitely gone off topic for some of these questions, but thank you to everyone who did submit a question. Thank you to everyone who took part in the polls alongside this as well, in a kind of special event in of itself, just deciding which of my locomotives is more popular than the others, because I've always been interested. Looking at the views for videos is one thing, but kind of getting this kind of poll data in particular is really cool. I am going to be taking a few special pictures of my LMS streamlined coronation model, just to kind of celebrate this, I suppose, because it is a gorgeous train after all. And yeah, that will be it for the video. That will be it from me. If you like what I do and you want to support me in any extra ways, I have a Patreon page. I will leave a link to that in the description. The Patreon page is specific to my LEGO Railway. Whilst I do other things on my YouTube channel, I want to try and keep the Patreon to the LEGO Railway specifically, because that's what I do the most on the channel, and that is what has the most engagement. Obviously, most of these questions were about LEGO trains in the first place, so naturally that's fair. Yeah, that will do for me. I'm actually going to sign off this time, just like my family does whenever we go around to events. We say we're leaving, half an hour later we're still here. So yeah, we're going to actually go now and end the video. So thank you all ever so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next episode. Bye.